actress now lives a life that many people would envy. She's the mother of 3 beautiful children, married to a successful producer, and she's a successful novelist. But life wasn't always so peachy. Her semi-autobiographical bestseller, The Cracker Factory, told the story of a reformed alcoholic, an ex-mental patient, and in her new book, Triplets, readers are taken behind the scenes of network television, another area she knows only too well. Joyce Rebecca Burdette. What is it like behind the scenes? You have worked at how many networks now?
2, ABC and NBC, and it's a lot like the mental institution.
I find it fascinating. In what way?
Well, there's only 2 differences between network and a mental institution. The network people dress better, and the people in the mental institution know that they're crazy.
But are they both crazy people?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. In very similar ways. I think people in television get crazy because there's so much magic involved in it.
Yeah.
Despite all the research and all the expertise and all the opinions and all the high-priced talent, you take a show and you schedule it and you put it up on the screen, and you still don't know if the audience is going to like it or not.
Well, the motion picture business is the same way.
Absolutely.
I said that one night talking to Sidney Poitier at dinner, and I said, isn't it like shooting craps because you're working with people that you know are winners, and yet when you're putting it all together, sometimes it hits the screen and it's an absolute bomb.
That's right.
I said, who do you place the fault with? I mean, is it the editor or who? He couldn't answer.
No, and people go away screaming because there is that magic. I mean, it's like a completed pass in football. There's a quarterback, the people who put the show together, and somebody's got to be out there to catch it. And an audience, you cannot tell what the audience is going to catch. And no matter what it looks like, nobody ever sets out purposely to make a bad show. The idea is to make a show that everybody's going to like. And yet something comes in, number 65 every week.
Yeah. The most ludicrous thing I've ever heard. I know a lot of network people, and I know the pressures that they're under, and I know that if you have a network show, they bring you a rating book in every morning to your office and show you what the overnights were. That would last one day with me. I'd say either you want me or forget it. I'll leave. You know, I couldn't take that.
Well,
I really couldn't.
It's an adrenaline pumper every day. I mean, you go in and you look at the sheets, and it's either up or down, and you're not sure why, or you stand there and you say, my God, why didn't they like it? Or why did they like it?
Yeah.
It's also rough on the actors.
Oh, it's terrible. It's terrible for everybody involved.
When I started on the show 3.5 years ago, we never knew from ratings books, and now they come in every day. It's posted on our bulletin boards, and we're sitting there. Does this mean I'm being fired?
It doesn't have to be. You can look at the daily papers.
But it's unbelievable. I mean, it's
what is it, Tuesday? They run it in the paper. They run all the daytime ratings here in the papers.
They do.
Now the public knows what the shows are doing.
Unreal.
And the public, I think, is very rating conscious because it's run in the newspapers. It used to be just the people in the industry knew about ratings, knew how these things happen, and knew what happens because of it. Shows go off or what. And now everybody knows.
Do you think that the printing of the ratings in the paper indicates to the audience what shows they should be watching and therefore influences them?
Indeed,
I've been thinking that too. I was just wondering. I feel it's a great deal like press. Some of the press can make or break a show also, which is very strange. I mean, certain magazines, if they put a certain people on the cover a certain amount of times, you're going to get curious about them.
You're going to get curious. I think the reviews are influential. I don't know if printing the ratings has that much effect. It would be interesting if that was factored into the research. If you know, that was an element in the research to see if you sort of create, you know, your top 10, if people do feel that these are the shows to watch. And the shows that are lower in the ratings, and yet there have been shows that haven't gotten very good ratings, stayed on for a while, like Hill Street Blues, and were critical successes.
Some of the biggest, most successful shows in television, you go right down the list. I can tell you that when they started, they did not produce ratings, but the difference was the sponsors or whomever saw something in that show that they felt was something they'd hang in with, and they became enormous successes. You can go right down the list of the biggest shows that ever hit television.
It's very good business for a network to keep a quality show on, or show that you see something. And
60 Minutes was a bomb when it started. Nobody watched it.
10 years. It's a 10-year, you know, and Harry Reasoner was sitting there saying it's not an overnight sensation.
I want to talk about your book, Triplets, because one of the characters in your book, one of the characters is in Triplets is Zippy DeFranco, who was an avid drug user, right?
Avid, absolutely.
And in real life, are drugs as widely used on the set and behind the scenes? We alluded to that moments ago. This young lady is very livid about that whole business about drugs being prevalent in our business.
Drugs are prevalent in the business, and they're pervasive in the business, and they're very destructive. And but also, not everybody in the business uses drugs.
Well,
either on the
not on her set,
on the network side, there are whole production companies and shows. I think
let's qualify that. You're talking also about people in the production and not the actors, not the celebrities. Per se, I mean, it's divided in your view.
Absolutely.
I mean, you're not saying just all the actors are using.
Oh no.
Well,
no.
see, this is the thing. It's like every actor is using drugs. But the biggest thing I use is aspirin. I swear.
That's Tylenol, isn't it?
No. Oh goodness, no. And that's unfortunate. Yeah.
It's on the network side. It's on production company side, and it is pervasive. But not everyone does. There was a TV Guide article a while ago that rather inferred that everybody in television network people primarily use drugs. And that's not fair to the people who don't. Now, there are a lot of people who do, but it was my observation when I was at the networks and since that the people who are heavily into drugs don't last. It's like anything else.
Exactly.
It's like alcohol. It's like they burn themselves out, they fry their brains, they get sick, their judgment gets very, very poor. The people who were heavily into drugs 5 years ago aren't there anymore. The people who are into drugs now will not be there in 5 years. I think the big damage that it does as far as is this aura of glamour somehow, or the jokes about drugs, as if it was a funny thing, or as if it was part of,
I hate that kind of humor.
being wonderful and with it, and the beautiful people.
It's so bad. It isn't glamorous. If you ever looked at somebody who does drugs, I wanted to do a commercial so badly. I wanted to do a public service commercial and take somebody who either alcohol or drug total abuse and just sit them there in front of the camera and say, hey, isn't it terrific? You want this? Take a look. 1 year, you know what I mean? Like not pointing at you. I'm sorry. This way. This woman does not. I'm just clearing that up right now. And she looks gorgeous. No, but I mean, take a look. You like what she looks like? To the drugs, idiot. I mean, it makes. I go across the country with these young kids that I see in the audience. I say, do me a favor. Add up what you're spending on drugs this week and figure out how much closer you'd be to that stereo you want, or if you're older, that new car you want, or whatever. Just figure out, just from 1 week, add it up for a year and look at it. It's like taking taxis in New York City. Sometimes I try not to, so that I add up what I spent in a week and I get on the subway instead, because it's just budget yourself. Just do a little common sense with yourself. I mean, just the guy who's selling you the drugs isn't doing it. He's driving in the Rolls Royce.
And it's not just the things you can buy, but it's your life, your health, your career. There are 3 people that I worked with when I was working in television, really creative, talented people, and really feeling terrific and great jobs. And they are no longer working anywhere. And all 3 of them, it's drugs. So they don't last. It isn't glamorous. It isn't healthy. You're not going to keep your talent going.
You yourself had a drinking problem.
I had a drinking problem.
How did that start in the first place?
Well, it started, nobody ever plans to become an alcoholic. And
social drinking?
Social drinking and drinking to relax, drinking to alleviate tension. And gradually it went into alcoholic type of drinking. And alcoholic drinking, any drinking that affects you, your career, your social life, your family life,
Did you have to be told?
Alcoholism.
Did you have to be told
I was told by a lot of people that they thought I had a drinking problem.
Because no one ever thinks they are.
I know. I couldn't either. I couldn't accept it. I was in my 20s, and I was a housewife, and I had 3 kids, and I love them dearly. And to me, housewives with 3 kids who are in their 20s can't be alcoholics. And I was finally hospitalized in a psychiatric ward for severe depression and alcoholism.
You were cracking up.
I cracked up, absolutely. And I mean, it's interesting that up until the moment when you realize that that's your problem, you can build such defenses.
Sure.
That it's almost a came the dawn moment. Everyone around me knew that I had a drinking problem except me. So when I went to the psychiatric ward, I was very fortunate. I was told at a moment that I could hear that I had a drinking problem. And I was able to accept it. And then my doctor suggested I go to Alcoholics Anonymous, which I did 15 years ago.
They must do a fantastic job.
They're wonderful. I haven't had a drink in 15 years.
Oh, that's great. Oh, that's wonderful.
It works for me, and it's not hard. And they're